you know, people make fun of like Zennials, I think they're called, or Zoomers, for like eating Tide Pods and stuff. It's like, well, I'm pretty sure there was a challenge right when we were in university of eating an entire spoonful of cinnamon.
Oh yeah,
which send people to the hospital.
Mm-hmm. People just inhaling lungs worth of cinnamon. It's not good for you.
Getting themselves a bit of popcorn lung. And that's how vaping was invented. Well, what are we here for today, Monfrey?
What are we here for? Welcome to Wiki Weekends, where, of course, we bring you a variety of wikis to talk about, and also sometimes just how stupid we all were for inhaling cinnamon.
I never did it. I tried to do the banana challenge.
I don't know what the banana challenge is, but yeah, I've generally never done any of them myself, but...
They usually get you, because someone will tell you this thing's impossible, and you're like, no, it's not, and that's how they get you. Because the banana one is eat a banana and then down a can of Sprite. He's like, that doesn't sound very good, but like the banana's got so much sugar in it that the Sprite immediately just froths up the second it hits your stomach.
Oh, God.
It's like, you know, an alternate to like Mentos and Coke.
Mm-hmm.
And it just makes you immediately vomit up because the Sprite just goes...
Anyway, we are here to talk about a wiki and not just random things in your stomach. And we're trying our best to stick to like a spooky season.
Of course, yeah. What spooky thing have you brought?
Well, that's the thing is, I'm not great with spooky things. I'm not good with horror.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm kind of trying to bring spooky season to us, but I don't necessarily have too many wikis that I can talk upon that are like actual horror.
Okay. Well, that's the thing. Horror is very subjective. Like, many people find things scary that others would not. I, for example, am scared of spiders, but there are many people out there like, why would you be scared of a spider? It's like, it's an irrational fear, dickhead.
Yeah.
If I knew like not to be scared, it's like, I'm scared of spiders, don't be. Well, that's me cured then.
Yeah.
It's like a great joke, isn't it? What's the term for being scared of chainsaws? It's just common sense.
Yeah.
But there's not a word for being scared of it, because you should be scared of a chainsaw.
But yeah, I've brought something that's more of a deconstruction of horror than anything else. And that is the movie Shaun of the Dead.
Ooh, so I believe both mine and yours, one of our favourite movies, yes?
Exactly, yes.
A phenomenal, flawless, almost peerless blend of comedy, horror, and action.
Yeah, and it you know, the movie, if people are unaware of the movie somehow, you know, it's a 2004 zombie comedy film directed by Edgar Wright and written by Edgar Wright and Simon Pegg. And yeah, it was the Zom rom-com is what they called it.
I believe it had possibly the most accurate tagline for a movie I've ever seen, which is a romantic comedy with zombies. And that's exactly what the film is.
That literally is it.
I'm going to check if the coast is clear.
Is it clear?
No.
How many?
Lots.
One of the most innovative films of the last 25 years.
It really is, and I will go straight to just mentioning the fact that this movie, on a budget of $6 million, made a box office $38.7 million, and you think,
it doesn't sound like a lot, does it? But I think
it's not, and comparatively to its budget, it did alright, but you think 38.7 million, and that is like a box office bomb.
Well, I say it's not a lot of money, is it? But I think that everyone alive today knows about it, because it did so well with DVD sales, didn't it?
And then so many people have talked about it online, like we're going to do today. Like they have just achieved this like level of almost beyond cult status.
Yeah, I wouldn't even call it a cult movie.
It's not, but it was.
Yeah.
At some point, it made that transition,
which is so strange to think of, like how influential and how like I've never met a person who's not seen this movie, who doesn't like this movie.
And obviously, speaking as people who are English, that is probably more likely that a lot of people have seen it in England than anywhere else. But
it's such a quintessentially British film, yeah.
People in the US who are watching this, just let us know, like how many people do you know, like who have seen it? How culturally prevalent is it in the US? Like, does everyone know this movie, or does is it more of a cult thing over there?
I can't imagine like it would, because of like how just famous is in like, I think probably Hot Fuzz would be the one Americans wouldn't be too familiar with, because that's so British.
I only child I couldn't see the view anymore. Was he Mumbo?
Right. What did he say?
Said his head, huh? He only chopped him down because he couldn't see the view no more. What's he moaning about?
What did he say?
He said an edge is an edge. He only chopped it down because it spoiled his view. What's Reaper moaning about?
That is because that's a breakdown of like Midsummer Murders and things like that.
Yeah, it's a American style action movie with an English Bobby, whereas Shaun of the Dead is a more universal like trope of like it came out the same year as Dawn of the Dead, I think, didn't it? The remake.
Potentially, yeah. It was definitely around the same time.
Yeah, but I do have like just a list of movies that came out in 2004. So once you've established the intro, we can go through those just to get people an idea of what else came out that year.
This is essentially a follow-up to... This is not me reading off this. It's just like, it's a follow-up to an intro from an episode of the TV show Spaced.
Yes, the Resident Evil 2 episode.
2000.
Yeah.
So they did an episode where Sean was so obsessed with the video game Resident Evil 2 that he fell asleep high as fuck playing it and dreamed that his house was being invaded by zombies and that he had a shotgun and was running around like FPS style shooting them.
Oh, shit. Oh, hiya.
Planted the seeds of what became Shaun of the Dead of... Well, American films always have them with like shotguns and stuff, but what would British people do? Which is how they got the scene of them like throwing fucking frying pans and stuff at the zombies. Because like, what else would you do?
Yeah, like we don't generally have guns in the UK. Like you have to have like a license for them and etc. etc. There's a lot of processes that you have to go through to acquire a gun in the UK, which means an average person like Sean, working his everyday life in a London like electronics store, he's not going to have a shotgun. Mm-hmm. He's going to have a cricket bat in his shed and some vinyls, and I absolutely love the idea of like going through the vinyl collection and just being like, what isn't important enough so that we can just throw it at them?
Oh, Stone Roses.
No. Second coming.
I like it.
Ah, Sade. That's Liz's.
Yeah, but she did dump you. Oh.
This is obviously the first installment of a trilogy, which is known as the Three Flavors Cornetto Trilogy. Which
does not include that shitty fucking Seth Rogen Alien movie, which they tried to make it an Edgar Wright movie. It's not.
It was one of those of people were waiting for an Alien film that was made by Edgar Wright, Simon Pegg and Nick Frost. And then they saw an Alien-based movie starring Simon Pegg and Nick Frost and assumed that was the third part of the Cornetto trilogy. And Paul, the movie that we're talking about, has nothing to do with it.
No.
It's not associated with Edgar Wright.
And whenever we talk about
that trilogy,
whenever we talk about the Cornetto, would you consider Paul part of the Cornetto trilogy? It's like, one, no, we don't, because it wasn't made by Edgar Wright, and two, it's just not as good because it lacks Edgar Wright's like talent.
And it also just kind of it lacks that kind of
edge
flavor that Wright and Simon Pegg bring to the page of like all of the references, and it doesn't have like that rewatchability in the sense that
density.
You can go back and watch Shaun of the Dead and notice a new thing like every time you watch it.
Well, it's one of the most popular videos on the channel is us talking about exactly that, of like the amount of depth and references and like the levels of effort that Edgar Wright went to create the film. And it's like his major motion picture debut. Yeah. Besides, I think he made like a Fistful of Fingers, which is like a short movie before that, and then Spaced.
And he also, like, I think maybe beforehand, he'd made like some music videos and stuff like that.
Yeah, there's a really good one for, I think it's Blue Suede.
But yeah, this is kind of, again, a continuation on from Spaced and the creative team behind that. And then, obviously, as we mentioned, like the Cornetto trilogy is Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, and then The World's End is the mint-flavoured, the alien-flavoured one.
Which I think is my favourite one of all of them.
Really?
I think Shaun of the Dead is untouchable. Hot Fuzz is amazing, but I think you can really see the acting chops of Simon Pegg in World's End. Mm-hmm. And as I've gotten old, I think we did that focus on it, didn't we? Like, as I've gotten older, I've really resonated with the story in there of like, as of like, I've achieved quite a lot compared to like, where I came from, and the idea of the guy who's just never gotten over high school never been able to move on.
For fuck's sake, Gary, I just punched my wedding ring out of a robot's tummy! Exactly, you fight for what's important! For what's so important about the Golden Mile? It's all I've got!
Feels a very poignant message. That's very well
it
done.
definitely hits harder in your 30s than in your 20s, but I still wouldn't say that it holds a candle to the other two personally.
Yeah, I think it's just my favourite because of that. Like,
It's
it resonates the most with me.
For me, personally, my favourite flavour of kind of things is like Edgar Wright is one of my favourite directors, and like I really like the like combo of Edgar Wright and Simon Pegg, and it's like Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz for me are like a 10 out of 10.
It's so...
But to me, like, The World End is maybe like an 8 or 9 out of 10. Like, it's great. But compared to like these two 10 out of 10 movies...
Yeah, it's as well, I feel so... Obviously, I'm really happy that Edgar Wright's doing so well, and so Simon Pegg. I just want him to come back and do more.
I know.
It's like, how is it that fucking, like, Martin Scorsese in his 80s still making movies with Leonardo DiCaprio, and Edgar Wright's like, no, I'm good.
And part of it might be that, Simon Pegg's too busy making Mission Impossible movies. We don't know.
Yeah, might be.
But yeah, like, Edgar Wright is probably my favourite movie director, personally.
He's one of the first directors I remember watching where I was aware of what a directing style is.
Yes.
Because, like, why is it his movies, like, seem so different? They seem so similar to each other, but so different to everything else. And that's before I started studying media, and it's like, yeah, one of the first movies to make me realise that you can feel the director's hand on the movie guiding everything.
And just the way, for example, one like really easy way to normally get a feel of an Edgar Wright movie is like the transitions between scenes.
Absolutely, yeah.
Of like, what other director transitions a scene by having like a fast shot of jam being spread on toast in like an action, like, boo, transition.
Well, that's the joke, isn't it? Yeah, he always likes doing that. Of like, it's the overly dramatic, normal moment.
The shot is really impactful, and you've always got like an impactful noise to go with it, and like really, really like kind of almost ASMR levels of detail in the noise of like you can feel that like jam being scraped across toast.
But that's another thing as well. Yeah, sound design. It's such an underappreciated aspect of filmmaking. And like Edgar Wright films are one of the first sounds I noticed that and David Fincher, who's also like a weirdo when it comes to getting everything exactly right. Like I forget which film it is that he did, but it's like one set in an office, and like it's the first movie that's like, why does sound design matter in a movie? And you watch it with headphones on, and like the clickety clack, someone typing on a keyboard. It's like it's perfect. It's like, oh, that's why. That's why you get someone like David Fincher to do this shit.
It was ranked 3rd on the Channel 4 list of the 50 greatest comedy films of all time, and quickly acquired a cult following.
Well earned.
Yeah, 100%. Like, yeah, if people somehow haven't seen it, like, it really is that good.
It's so good, and it's so... There's not an ounce of fat on it.
No.
It's like, and as well, like I said, rewatchability of like literally... There's the idea of the Chekhov's gun. Chekhov's gun is a trope where it says if you introduce a gun in the first scene, if the gun is not fired by the end of the play, don't do it. Unless you're deliberately subverting that expectation. Edgar Wright, it's like, it's not even Chekhov's gun, it's like Chekhov's fucking arsenal. Of everything is a reference that's paid off later. Everything.
It's one of those weird things where you could almost say that it spoils the movie, but it never does. In the sense that
you don't notice it's afterwards.
Everything that is said in the first half of the movie happens in the second half of the movie, but in a different context, in the context of a zombie apocalypse.
Yeah, she says we're going to go we'll wake up, like go for a pint at Mary's or something like that, and then Mary, we'll get a Bloody Mary, and then the girl in the garden, Mary, Bloody Mary, a bite at the king's head, the dad getting bit, then we'll come back to the bar for shots, end up at the bar later with a gun.
Yeah, and they end up shooting the Winchester at people, and then also, even in just that moment where they are shooting the rifle, they are playing Time Splitters 2.
On your left, top right.
Reload, nice shot.
Yeah.
And then they recreate that exact moment later. And it's just... that is two examples of 100 times over what happens to
I
the
think
movie.
go on, what's one of your favourite moments like that then? That's paid off.
I mean, I brought up the time splitters one, because that's my favourite just because I love time splitters so much.
And the fact is, it's one of the few times where video games are used in a movie where they actually use the right sound effects from the game.
Yeah.
They don't just play generic, like, beep boops, as they do it.
Hey man, listen. All top left. I was gonna say, reload. I'm on it. Since. Oh, sorry, shot.
Top left! Reload! I'm on it! Nice shot.
Oh, have you got a different one in mind?
There's a couple, like, there's a few lines that I've always loved. Like, I love his mum. Like, his mum is, that is the most British northern mum I've ever seen in, like, a film. Ever. She's so realistic. That bit where it's like, do you want a cup of tea? And he's like, no, there's a zombie apocalypse. Like, do you want? I'll put the kettle on. It's like, that's exactly what a mum would do.
And then, like, when she's bitten later and they find out, he's like, Mum, like, what the fuck? I didn't want to cause a fuss.
Yeah, run it under a cold tap.
But yes, as mentioned earlier, Shaun of the Dead was developed from an episode of Simon Pegg and Edgar writing the sitcom Spaced. The episode Art, which was written by Pegg with Jessica Stevenson and directed by Wright, sees Pegg character under the influence of amphetamines and playing Resident Evil 2, hallucinating the fighting off a zombie invasion.
Yeah.
And I really love, I know I'm repeating myself, but like, I just love that as an inspiration for how do we make this a movie. It's like, Simon Pegg is playing Resident Evil 2 high as fucking tripping balls. Let's make that a movie.
It's, yeah, 'cause they just wanted to do a zombie thing. And then there's the great story of, the father of the genre, George Romero. He didn't invent zombies, he invented modern zombies. So, like, zombies had existed as, like, a trope and, like, voodoo and stuff like that. But the modern idea of what a zombie is was George Romero. He says, like, the best zombie movie made is Shaun of the Dead, besides his own. And remember, he said that the year that Dawn of the Dead by Zack Snyder came out. And he openly went on record as saying, like, this is the best zombie movie I've ever seen. And they said they put that pull quote right on the cover. Away.
Oh, yeah. 100%. Isn't there, like, a reference that George A. Romero didn't get of, like, we're coming to get you, Barbara? And, like, George A. Romero's like, oh, yeah.
Because, obviously, Edgar Wright is, like, a huge film buff. He tried to put as many references to, like, old film properties in as he could. For example, when he's, like, the restaurant that does all the fish. Which, fun fact, during the Blink You'd Miss It shot where he looks it up, the tagline for that restaurant is actually the restaurant that does all the fish. So those visual gags, but it's called, like, Leo Fulci's, which is a reference to someone Fulci, a director who did, like, some zombie movies. The place where the girl works, it's not Londis, it's Landis, because he did American Werewolf in London. And the bit where he says, like, I'm coming to get you, Barbara, which is a reference to Night of the Living Dead. And Edgar Wright, when, like, George Romero's like, I loved it, it's one of the best zombie movies I've ever seen. It's like, do you mind was that we ripped off your line? It's like, what line? It's like, we're coming to get you, Barbara. It's like, oh yeah, I did write that. It's like, Edgar Wright was so much of a nerd, he knew more about George Romero's movies than he did.
You mentioned a couple of things there that I was unaware of, and I have watched this film over and over and over again. It was like, me and a friend had a hyper fixation on this movie when we were in high school. And it was like every weekend, our tradition was, like, get together, watch Shaun of the Dead, and then a year later it became, watch Shaun of the Dead and play Resident Evil 4, and that was like our weekend every weekend. That's
the thing, it's such a dense movie, and there's so many, like, little references like that. And they're everywhere in the film. Like, there's every background detail is something that Wright like handpicked. Like, the one that I think is the most, it's not subtle because it's there, but it's just one of those things, like, the fact he did it shows how much he gives a shit. He's like, when he goes into, like, he's going for the shop in the morning and it's a zombie apocalypse. Like, one of the best shots in the entire movie, which, fun fact, Edgar Wright filmed first because the crew didn't think a first-time director should be, like, waving his dick around that much. They were like, yeah, who's he think he is? He only directs a few episodes of TV. Who's he to tell us what to do? He did those first two opening scenes right away. Do you know the one where he goes to a shop and then they reset it and it's like the zombie apocalypse? Because they were the two most difficult scenes in the movie. And he knew that if he directed that in one take, the crew would respect him. And he added more stuff in there as well because he wanted to make it as dense as possible. When Simon Pegg is getting the drink, you hear a radio in the background. And it says the dead are coming back to life. And Simon Pegg doesn't notice it because they say it in Hindi. Because the owner of the shop is listening to it in Hindi. And you can even see right in the background as he leaves the shop, the guy with one arm. You see him, and that's how he gets there, because he follows Simon home. You see it just as he leaves, like the guy with one arm is following him.
Mm-hmm. The guy in like the groomsman outfit, yeah.
Yep.
And he's like, but because Simon Pegg's so out of it, he like doesn't notice the blood on the window. He doesn't notice that there's like zombies hobbling around the shop. He's just like
he just thinks
in his own
pissed,
little like zombie mode from being hungover.
Yeah, he just thinks everyone's pissed.
No, I haven't got any change. I didn't even have enough at the fucking shop.
Yeah, the very first thing they shot was those two scenes back to back, so that the crew would just like understand that he's got a vision and he knows how to realise it.
Mm-hmm.
I also love as well, like that's followed by one of my favourite jokes in the entire thing of like, are there any zombies out there? Don't say that! What? The Z word! They're not zombies! Okay. Are there any out there though? Oh no. And then he just like pans like one shot to the left. Oh wait, there they are. There's like 50 zombies. So I just love how casual it is. I'm like, no, they're not there. Then he just looks like, oh no, wait, they're all there. It's like 50.
Are there any out there, though?
Can't see any. Maybe it's not as bad as all that. Oh, no, there they are.
It's one of the other great moments of when the lights come out and he's trying to get the electricity back on and he's flicking all the fuses.
Yeah.
And then he just flicks on the wrong fuse and the back light comes on. And there's just like the entire window is just zombies and he's like, huh? And just turns the light back off and walks back in the room like everything's fine.
So you also get that great bit, don't you, where there's like Dylan Moran. He's like, well, someone had to do something. You're having a tiff with your boyfriend. It's like, he's not my boyfriend. Here's a pint, mate. Thanks, babe. It's like, yeah, look at that. That's a good male relationship in a movie. Like, that's just a friendship of two guys who are comfortable with each other. And I really like that.
And it mentions some roles from the likes of Dylan Moran here. Just like some secondary roles and cameos include Dylan Moran, Martin Freeman, Tasman Grieg, Julia Deakin, and Reece Shearsmith. The voices of Mark Gatiss and Julia Davis can be heard as radio news presenters.
Yep.
And Trisha Goddard also makes a cameo appearance, hosting 2 fictionalized episodes of a real-life talk show, Trisha.
So, Sam, don't you think it's wrong to be married to a zombie?
I don't see nothing wrong with it, but I know that some people would see something wrong with it. But he's my husband, you know?
Yeah, and that's because just Edgar Wright he cashed in every chit he had for like all of his mates, because like, apparently he knew like Chris Martin or something like Coldplay.
Oh,
because I think
yes,
don't Coldplay appear in like the segment at the end? Like they're doing Zombade.
It doesn't say where, but yeah, I believe you're right in Zombade, and it says Coldplay members Chris Martin and Johnny Buckland also have cameo roles in the film.
Was it difficult to perform with 2 undead people on stage?
Well, despite being dead, Will could still play the drums, you know?
Yeah.
So, Carl, we'll just end with what the actual critical response was, because as we mentioned at the time, it wasn't too much of a massive hit success.
Which is surprising. I feel like just so many people just watched it on DVD. It feels like one of those last movies that were just like so massive on fucking DVD.
Shaun of the Dead received critical acclaim at the time. The review aggregator website Rotten Tomatoes, 92% of the 217 critics' reviews are positive. So again, we always have to mention, like we realise with Rotten Tomatoes, that means 92% of reviews are positive, not that it got an average review score of 92%.
No, yeah.
It's not Metacritic.
I want to know those 8% of people who don't think it's got any value.
Even a good movie.
Yeah. Because that's the thing of like, George Romero, the father of the genre, is like, this is the best example of it released in the last 20 years, including my own stuff.
And then 8% of people are like, I think it's not even good. On Metacritic, it got a 76 out of 100 based on 34 critics. And he's like, I don't understand how someone can watch that and think that movie's like a 7 out of 10. And again, it does go favourably with rewatches, but I never watched that movie and thought, I need to rewatch this before I get it. It's a very straight up, simple zombie romedy, zombie romedy,
Maybe that's why, because it was so unique. Like, people didn't
Mm-hmm.
really know how to rate it. And you said, what, an average of like 7 out of 10?
So on Metacritic 76 and on Rotten Tomatoes 78.
So I say
100,
7 or 8 out of 10?
7 to 8 out of 10, yeah.
Okay, so I've got some other movies released in 2004 now. Do you want me to just go through some of those that have between 7 and 8 out of 10?
Yeah, let's go.
Okay, so the first one will be Saw. The very first Saw movie, which is pretty well made.
That's fair. That's fair, yeah.
And that helped define a genre as well. Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban got a 7.9.
So that is rated better than Shaun of the fucking Dead.
Yep. Howl's Moving Castle got an 8.2. It's like, no, I'm surprised that got us.
Again, like, that just kind of shows that not everyone knows what they're talking about. Fucking Howl's Moving Castle.
Hey, speaking of not knowing what they're talking about, Mean Girls, 7.
That's like an 11 out of 10.
The Notebook, 7.8. So the Notebook is better than both Mean Girls and Shaun of the Dead.
But yeah, let us know in the comments.
Yes, your favourite.
Your favourite one of those 2004 movies that Carl just went through. And if it's not Shaun of the Dead, why isn't it Shaun of the Dead?
I can see Howl's Moving Castle. A lot of people... I'm not the biggest fan of Ghibli movies, but even I can be like, as not a fan of them, I can be like, these are phenomenally well-crafted pieces of media.
Yeah, and there are a couple of movies in there that I will give. If you've got a personal preference,
I can see you preferring it.
Howl's Moving Castle over Shaun of the Dead. Absolutely fair enough. But anyway, yeah, thank you all for watching as always, and I hope everyone has enjoyed a little bit of a rant and rave about Shaun of the Dead.
Hell goddamn yes.